It's being called the biggest leak in video game history. Basically, what happened was during the FTC versus Microsoft trial, Microsoft and the FTC were told to submit documents, and Microsoft submitted one without proper redactions. That's right, this wasn't the FTC's fault. This is all on Microsoft and their attorneys. Long story short, Microsoft revealed their plans through 2030, including new consoles, new controllers, games that they plan to release. And I want to talk about 7 of the most important things that we learned from these documents right now. So first things first, if you want to get these documents for yourself, well, you're going to have to find a friend who happens to know where they are, because they have been removed from the website. Here's Tom Warren saying the U.S. District Court has deleted all of the documents in the FTC versus Microsoft case following a huge error where multiple confidential Xbox documents were attached to a single PDF. I didn't even know you could attach a PDF to other PDFs. And one thing I want to clarify is that in my original video, I made it sound like the FTC was responsible for this leak. I was mistaken, and I believe I phrased that poorly. I was referring to the FTC versus Microsoft case, not the FTC. But anyway, the FTC, Douglas came out here and said the FTC was not responsible for uploading Microsoft's plans for its games and consoles to the court website. So if you were like, why will Microsoft sue the FTC? No, they won't, because it's Microsoft's own fault. So that is the first thing that I want to clarify at the top of the video. And then from there, we should talk about what was said specifically by Judge Jacqueline Scott Corley. So basically, Microsoft notified the court presiding the FTC versus Microsoft trial that Microsoft had a little whoopsie and leaked a thing or two. The court has removed the trial exhibits from the internet. Here's what was said. On September 7th, the court issued an order resolving all remaining sealed issues with respect to the trial exhibits in this matter. The court ordered the parties to meet and confer and provide the court with a secure cloud link to the admitted exhibits with the redactions set forth in the court's orders. Microsoft provided the link on September 14th, and the court uploaded the exhibits to internet page established for this case. The parties have notified the court that the versions of the exhibits provided contain non-public information, and the court has removed the trial exhibits from the internet. The parties shall meet and confer, including any non-parties, and resubmit the admitted trial exhibits via a secure cloud link by September 22nd, 2023. The parties shall simultaneously file a written certification signed by all parties and non-parties whose information is contained in the admitted trial exhibits, verifying they have reviewed the exhibits and certify they contain only public information in accordance with the court's orders. So long story short, we're going to go through this whole thing again around September 22nd, because the files are going to go live yet again, and people will be looking into those files to see whether or not there was another leak. Now, all of this has transpired, and one of the most important posts that we should also talk about going to the next point is that Phil Spencer has actually redacted. The Verge, who seems to be CC'd on all of Microsoft's emails, got the following on their website. Here's Phil Spencer's memo in full to staff. It reads, "Team, today, several documents submitted in the court proceedings related to our proposed acquisition of Activision Blizzard were unintentionally disclosed. I know this is disappointing, even if many of the documents are well over a year old and our plans have evolved. I know we all take the confidentiality of our plans and our partners' information very seriously. This leak obviously is not us living up to that expectation. We will learn from what happened and be better going forward. We all put incredible amounts of passion and energy into our work, and this is never how we want that hard work to be shared with the community. That said, there's so much more to be excited about, and when we're ready, we'll share the real plans with our players. In closing, I appreciate all of the work that you pour into Team Xbox to surprise and delight our players. In the days and weeks ahead, let's stay focused on what we can control, continuing the amazing success of Starfield, the upcoming launch of the incredible and accessible Forza Motorsport, and continuing to build games, services, and devices that millions of players can enjoy." That is an email directly from Phil Spencer to staff. Now, I did find it interesting that he talked about evolving their plans because what was revealed was quite significant. I tweeted the following. That said, there's so much more to be excited about, and when we're ready, we'll share the real plans with our players. So since the leaks, it sounds to me, and my interpretation is that Microsoft has expanded their content plans beyond what we read this week. And I did all caps for emphasis. So we know about a new console, we know about a new controller, and real quick, if I just bring up the documentation again, if you missed it, here is another look at the new controller. And before I continue on, did you know here's a look at my subscribe button? You can hit it and hit that bell to know when my content goes live. If you're already subscribed, hit that like button to help the video get shared. But in all seriousness, the new console, a lot of people are talking about how the new technology was revealed, how it has reduced power consumption. But a lot of people are commenting on the cylindrical look of the device and their reaction to that. So that was the new console. And real quick, just seeing I have it up here, I know the controller's right here. If you missed the other video, I highly recommend you go see the other video because I read through this whole document. But here's the controller. And I think those are the two most significant reveals in addition to the games list. So I went over the games list in that other video. Let's jump back here to Phil Spencer's public statement on the leaks. We've seen the conversation around old emails and documents. It is hard to see our team's work shared in this way because so much has changed and there's so much to be excited about right now and in the future. We will share the real plans when we are ready. So it sounds like Phil Spencer has more up his sleeves, and we will find out more about what that is in the near future. What else should I talk about? Maybe I'll jump. No, let's talk about Baldur's Gate 3. So apparently the read on the Baldur's Gate 3 release is the following. Polygon's reporting Microsoft completely misjudged Baldur's Gate 3. And Cromwell, who has been very public about his sentiment about, industry reactions, about how they had insane funding, and he's like, we didn't have funding, and like just sort of going against all these narratives that keep popping up. Well, here's what he said about this article. In their defense, so did everyone else. Same with DOS 2, Divinity Original Sin 2. Comes with the genre and the way we approach things and the way we execute things. There just isn't any existing data that could have told anyone how Baldur's Gate 3 was going to perform. We just had to take giant, spooky leaps. And he's absolutely right. Nobody knew Baldur's Gate 3 was going to be this massive, unparalleled success in the way that we're seeing. It's crazy how successful the game has been being. And then Sven Vink said, I'd love to meet that analyst. Sven, if you don't know, he runs Larian Studios and is a creator of Baldur's Gate 3, obviously. And it looks like I forgot to turn on my filter, so let's just boop. Ooh, you know what I like? Rounded edges. Yeah, that's right. It's worth it. I like the rounded edges as opposed to the on-cropped, Destin has too many tabs open reaction. The document that sparked all of this, though, is rather simple. So basically, you have this documentation, and at the bottom here, I edited a little bit. There was a page gap, so I just took out the page gap. So I haven't really changed the fundamental nature of this, but financial year 23 Q2, the stack rank, the publisher title, the release timing, Game Pass release window, likely to close, and the wow factor. And all the way down here is Larian Baldur's Gate 3. It was planned for 12/22. They wanted to do day and date for Game Pass. They were estimating that it would cost $5 million to launch on Game Pass. And they were calling it a second run Stadia PC RPG. Second run does not mean second rate or poor, though. Second run actually means that this is the second release of Baldur's Gate 3, which is true in two respects. First, it seems that there was supposed to be some sort of Stadia exclusivity or a Stadia release window where it would have hit there first, Stadia and PC, and then the second release window, I imagine, would have been console. But in addition to that, there was also the early access window of about 3 years where the game was released. So I don't read this as a dig at Baldur's Gate 3. But maybe it is. I don't know. I put a post out there. I'm like, does anybody know what this means? Because I don't. Likely to close was medium, so they were like, maybe we can get this, maybe we can't for Game Pass. Now, this was in reaction to Phil Spencer calling 2023 or 2022 a disaster. Now, I clipped out the important bits here in my email. On my, I'm just referencing a lot of the Twitter posts that I made, but Phil Spencer called the 16-month gap between Halo and the next AAA game a disaster back in May of 2022. But I did like his note about learning. With the news that Starfield is going to miss holiday, so they're announcing that Starfield's about to slip and all this other stuff is about to take place, right? Not broadly communicated yet. Let Jamie manage that. Still not a ton of clarity on the launch date of Redfall and Stalker 2 development, so impacted by the war in Ukraine. I feel we are in a huge hole with our games lineup for platform marketing differentiation and our Game Pass content. We keep talking about a bit AAA a quarter in the service, and it feels like we are likely to go through a gap of almost 16 months between big exclusive launches on our platform, Halo Infinite being our last on December 8th, 2021. This is really a disaster situation for us, given all we've invested in content across studios at our Game Pass Content Fund. We need to learn from this and build a plan forward. In terms of learning, I think we need to get much better at overall portfolio planning on our games with real honesty on dates. Doing this from memory, from summer 2021 through December 21, we had an amazing lineup of games with Flight Sim the console, Psychonauts 2, Age 4, Forza Horizon 5, and Halo. And I've praised Microsoft for that window in 2021. I thought, yeah, you're getting your stride. You got this. And then just nothing in 2022. And a lot of, like, Phil's obviously talking about the games that the industry is looking for, right? The games us, the consumers, are looking for. We're looking for those big tentpole releases. So yes, I realize they had Pentiment, and they know they had Hi-Fi Rush, and they had all these games, but he's talking about big tentpole AAA releases, and even Phil Spencer, the guy running Xbox, says they dropped the ball in 2022. So there's no need to get defensive in the comments about it. This is Phil Spencer's words, the guy running Xbox, and he agrees with that sentiment that they did not have enough AAA releases. So anyway, continuing on, there were good 3-player games in that time frame, as well as like Back for Blood. We set a very high bar in 2021 on quality and pacing. Oh, this is worse. Sorry, everybody. And pacing. Yeah. We were good Back for Blood. We set a very high bar in 2021 on quality and pacing of content, which was awesome to see. But the come off that year with no big exclusives launching in 2022 is a portfolio planning miss that we can't afford. If we need to delay launches, understanding there is a financial impact of that to create more regular beats for us, we need to do that. We have to understand that the situation we are in now is a failure of our planning and production execution. He's being very straightforward. He's being very honest about learning and how to plan going forward to have a more regular release cadence. I appreciate this kind of transparency. A lot of people have said that they read this as being mean or something. No, he's being direct. There's a difference between being direct and truthful about shortcomings and then looking to learn from them and being mean. I don't read this as either. I think this is very straightforward and honest, and I appreciate that usually. What's the alternative? Be wishy-washy, be like I appreciate the directness. I don't think we need wishy-washiness from a leader in this type of position. Now, I meant to do the teeth emoji, but they didn't have it on Twitter, so I did the skull emoji. Anyway, now let's roll up our sleeves and get planning on the next 2 years of games. First, we need to build an accurate list of new game launches that are coming in the next 24 months with expected dates. For now, I don't want to litter this list with content updates or seasons of existing games. So he doesn't want to know about a Call of Duty season that's coming or a Destiny season. We need launches. Let's build this across 1-player, 2-player, and 3-player. I don't know what, maybe that's something else. Looking at Game Pass launches. I think we are going to see that our next big new game launch is Redfall, hopefully. That didn't go great. It was their next big game launch, but it didn't go great. I'm not aware of the Stalker 2 dates. We know now that's like next year, 2024. I know the overall portfolio is fairly light from third-party First party, second party, third party, that's what it was. But let's dig. We also need to get some clarity on our internal launch dates. I'm setting this now as I feel real pressure for Tamarind. What is Tamarind? So that's a code name for some sort of new game, and there's a few code names out there. Is Tamarind T? I don't know. Let me know what your guess is in the comments about what Tamarind could be and how we are going to show up in terms of dates. It will be very ambitious to the community with both our lack of updates and so many games and lack of clarity on almost everything in the show that we are out of position. I need us to work this as leaders. And this went out to Sarah Bond and a lot of senior people. We've dealt with difficult situations before. We'll do it again. I'm frustrated by where we are, but we'll get through that. Most important is building a winning plan. Let's get on that. Hell yeah. I don't know why I find that inspirational. I don't know why people would find that mean, but in that instance, he's saying, look, we missed the ball. We need to figure out what's going on. People are right. We need a new AAA release. What are we going to do? What's our plan of attack? And I like that. It's inspirational. You're looking at the situation honestly, and you're coming up with a plan to address it. Now, this one I didn't see a lot of people talking about. This is a partner like working at Microsoft. He works on the software architect. There's interviews out there with this individual. And he expressed a worry to Phil Spencer about the moat that they built and a bloodbath a few years down the road. So I found this quite notable because it brings up sort of some of the questions about Game Pass and such. So I'll just read this to you. You have to read from the bottom up. So this might be a little disorienting. But anyway, Phil Spencer starts at the bottom. I feel like the highlighted question is a preview of an opinion you have. Do you think Game Pass would have saved a studio we once owned? And he's referring to some of the other studios like Ensemble, for example. My turn to say, honestly, I don't know. I don't really know what goes into closing a studio. How much funding versus personnel versus output feeds into the decision. In my mind, if a studio completely needs to prove their worth by being net value over their cost, it adds a ton of pressure to release hits on a regular basis. If a game is niche, though, too bad. This is not armchair quarterbacking. I swear I'm just super worried about the moat you've built, that the winds will change, and we have a bloodbath a few years down the road. The FTC should have used this in court. I don't know why they didn't. Anyway, especially given our pure cloud companies underestimating of the game creation process, but by the grace of God go we. Not my job, I appreciate, so trying to train my mental model on how to think about the content side of the house to not be worried, especially where the economics have changed with Game Pass. He's right. He's bringing up valid points and valid concerns. He's worried that, hey, so we're worried about all these studios, and is there going to be a bloodbath? You know, even more recently, so this was in 2021, fast forward to 2023, here's Microsoft announcing that they're going to have to do 10,000 layoffs, impacting several of their studios. The worry is warranted. And I don't think Jean-Emile Aline, he's French, so I should be better at that, but I'm not, is raising any sort of crazy notion here. He's just saying, I want to protect our colleagues. I don't think we've ever closed the studio due to the studio's P&L. It's almost always been either from leadership leaving, Lionhead as an example, or team just losing its passion, Ensemble as an example. Ensemble Studios shut down not that long ago, and like the heart of Ensemble will come back together and come up with like the Halo games and the Halo RTS games and others. So Lionhead, we all know, Peter Molyneux left. Ensemble, it hurts to hear that he thinks that they lost their passion, but maybe that was self-admitted, or maybe it was just a mess in there. But that's sad to hear. I don't really know how else to react to it, but I found this interesting. Maybe you don't. I did. I thought it was kind of interesting, and I thought it was important to read, and not a lot of people are talking about it. Like, is Microsoft setting themselves up for a bloodbath would be a question I'd love to see asked to the industry, because we've seen Sean Layden and people talk about it. That's something that could be dived into more, and I haven't really seen a lot of people talk about it, but it is thought-provoking to say the least. Now, let's go back in time again to 2020 when the PlayStation 5 was revealed and talk about Phil Spencer's reaction to it. Here's what he says immediately after the reaction. Even as I type this now, I know I shouldn't, but I can't help myself. We've all lived with 7 years of starting off a generation with a price and performance and messaging disadvantage to PS4 with Xbox One. I have to admit this morning, when I woke up knowing the PS5 reveal was today, that the stress level was higher than normal. Now, after almost 12 hours of soaking in their unveil, taking apart their specs, and looking at the community responses, I just wanted to say that I'm proud of our team. We have a better product than Sony does, not just on hardware, but equally important on the software platform and services on top of the hardware. We have the ingredients of a winning plan, and I love that because I agree with that. They do have the ingredients of a winning plan. They need to make it work. And they're so close to having it right. Anyway, I felt the feedback from the BOD discussion on being too confident, and maybe this will just reinforce that perception. I get the need to be humbly confident, but today was a good day for us. We haven't won anything, and I know we have hard discussion about pricing, P&L, investments, etc. This mail isn't trying to scoop any of that. Those discussions really matter, but we can take confidence in our product truth here, and I do believe any conversation needs to start with believing that this was a good day for Xbox. Thanks for indulging me. And then Satya Nadella said, this is really great to hear, Phil. Neither of us announced pricing yet. And then obviously they would go on to have a conversation about the pricing of the Xbox Series X and where they go from there. Very, very confident. No, they haven't won. The console is an interesting piece of hardware, to say the least. But have they won? That's the question. They're doing well, but from a console perspective, they have been struggling. So it's a great console. I do wonder if this mid-generation refresh is going to help bolster that, because there's rumors that Sony's doing the same thing. Sorry, I'm still a little sick. Xbox really wants to buy Nintendo. I think this is the last one we'll talk about. I had a little bit more, but I just realized I've been recording for 22 minutes and the kids are waking up. So here's what he said about buying Nintendo. And this could be its whole own video. So let's read this and then go from there. Takashi, I totally agree that Nintendo is the prime asset for us in gaming. And today, gaming is our most likely path to consumer relevance. I've had numerous conversations with the LT of Nintendo about tighter collaboration and feel like if any US company would have a chance with Nintendo, we are probably in the best position. The unfortunate or fortunate for Nintendo situation is that Nintendo is sitting on a big pile of cash. They have a BOD that until recently has not pushed for further increases in market growth or stock appreciation. I say until recently, as our former Microsoft BOD member Value Act has been heavily acquiring shares of Nintendo. That's interesting. So somebody's been buying up shares of Nintendo, and I've kept in touch with Mason Morfitt as he's been acquiring. It's likely he will be pushing for more from Nintendo stock, which could create opportunities for us. Without that catalyst, I don't see an angle to a near-term mutually agreeable merger of Nintendo and Microsoft, and I don't think a hostile action would be a good move, so we are playing the long game. But our BOD has seen the full write-up on Nintendo and Valve, and they are fully supportive on either if opportunity arises, as am I. So a few things to note in there. He's not talking about a hostile takeover. He's saying if the opportunity arises, we should jump on it, obviously, and it seems like the board is supportive of it. What company in their right mind, from a business perspective, would pass on acquiring somebody like Nintendo or Valve if they walked up to their door and said, hey, we want to sell to you. Let's have that conversation. You would be insane to not have that conversation with those companies, because strictly from a business perspective, it would make sense to acquire one of the most insanely profitable brands, be that Valve, be that Nintendo, and to just like what would the industry want them to say? No, I refuse to buy you. Figure it out yourself. No, they're going to walk over to Sony and they're going to sell to Sony, or they're going to walk over to Google or Tencent and they're going to walk over to those, or God forbid, Embracer, and we saw what happened with Embracer. But if that situation is going to arise, it's going to happen, whether it's Microsoft or not. And Microsoft is merely saying, if we end up in that situation, we probably won't, but we should probably buy them. Continuing on. Confidentially, we have two fairly active M&A discussions in gaming right now. Warner Brothers Interactive and ZeniMax. ZeniMax they closed on. I wonder if Warner is still on the table. I took ZeniMax to the BOD last week, and prior to the BOD discussion, I asked Amy and Satya if they wanted me to slow either or both given the TikTok discussions. They were going to buy TikTok, I think. And they both emphatically told me no. They are fine doing all three of these if the deals make sense. I won't say WB or Zenny is Nintendo, but both are for sale. That's interesting. Both are for sale and gettable by us if things align. They were selling regardless. So ZeniMax was for sale, and WB is still for sale. Biggest obstacle in WB is IP ownership. We wouldn't own any of the IP. That means that's a big miss. Anyway, which hurts long-term flexibility, and the only obstacle on ZeniMax is valuation expectations of founders. But I think it's likely one or both of these happen, which will help us continue to double down on our gaming relevance. To give a sense of scale, ZeniMax is about the size of our current first-party studios org, so that would be doubling our content asset. Downside is it's more core, less broad, not mobile, more North American, European, etc. That not mobile note actually lends into the idea that the Activision acquisition is for mobile, because that was a big miss and a big gap that they wanted to fill. I love this discussion and value you're looking at the opportunities here. At some point, getting Nintendo would be a career moment, and I honestly believe a good move for both companies. It's just taking a long time for Nintendo to see that their future exists off of their own hardware. A long time. Smiley face. The point Phil Spencer, I think, is making with their future exists off their own hardware is he is believing in cloud. He's believing in the fact that hardware is a flat line for most companies. I know Nintendo sells hardware incredibly well, and Valve has introduced the handheld market again in a big way. But I think Phil is outlining some interesting things there. It's just taking a long time for Nintendo to see that their future plans exist off their own hardware. What that looks like is that with Microsoft, is that some sort of development on the Nintendo side into the PC market? We don't know. He's gotten a lot of heat for this statement. He said it would be a career moment and a good move for both companies. Sure, yeah. Being able to buy a major company and make a lot of money for your company, I could see why Phil would think that would be a career moment, I guess. I think the bigger conversation is a lot of people think that, consolidation is bad, and there are reasons that consolidation is bad. I understand that because it creates fewer opportunities in the market. But there's two sides of the conversation to look at. There's the business perspective where, yeah, that would be a very profitable move for Microsoft and a good thing for their shareholders and a good thing for them and for anybody invested in Microsoft. They would stand to make a lot of money, right? So, yeah, I get why Phil Spencer likes that. I find it interesting that people don't recognize that Jim Ryan, that Phil Spencer, it's a business play. It's always a business play for both of them. The price increases, when the price increases happen, it's all strategy, it's all business, and that's just how the industry works. And sometimes being presented with that is frustrating for people to see because, what is the saying? No, it's not all happy, get along on as much as we would love it to be. There is a collaborative aspect, of course, but there is also the desire to be number one and to win. And Microsoft wants to be number one. And when you're going up against Tencent, who has, I think it's $33 billion, and you're Microsoft with $15 billion, according to those internal charts, it's going to take a lot of big moves to get there. I think consolidation is inevitable. I think it's going to happen whether we want it or not. And if Sony buys it, or Microsoft buys it, or Nintendo buys it, I'm actually better with that than I would be with, say, Tencent buying more or Embracer buying more. They don't have the foundation. They don't have the stability. And I think any of the three companies that I listed, the big three in the gaming space, purchasing more, I think that's going to happen whether you want it to or not. And that's just a reality we live in. And that's my hot take on the whole situation. Is it good or is it bad? I think that's a bigger conversation. The bigger conversation I want to have with you right now, though, is why aren't you subscribed? Hit that subscribe button. Hit that bell to know when it goes live. Hit that like button if you like my content. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Thank you so much to the members for supporting. I really appreciate you. Those are the 7 big takeaways. Let me know what you think about this longer form content and click that join button if you want to become a member to watch these without ads. I really appreciate you. Check out yesterday's video where we go over the new console, the new controller, and some of the other big revelations, including that insane game list. Just a quick peek about probably what my next video is going to be. Look at this game. We know all the way through 24, and we have games like Project Kestrel, which I'm going to talk a little bit about, the Fallout 3 remaster, Ghostwire Tokyo sequel, Dishonored 3, Doom Year Zero DLC next year. That sounds great. I'm going to talk about all that and more next time. Again, check out the video from yesterday. I'll see you for the next one. Bye for now, everybody.